3 things that you should be doing to every one of your car photos to make them pop a little bit more than everyone else's, all right? So we're not gonna go into editing, that's another video. We'll do that another time. So I'm just gonna throw on one of my new presets from my new pack, coming out September 15th. If you're watching this video after that, then check the description. You've got a full 25 pack down there for you. So yeah, that's the photo edited. From there, I'm just gonna start doing the first little trick, which is selecting the subject, which is obviously the car. And we're gonna do this thing where I lift up the shadows to reveal all the details of the car, but then we just lift down the exposure back to where it was. Does that make sense? So it's like, if we just left the shadows like that and lifted them up, well, that looks stupid. It looks a bit too artificial. So then we just add the shadow, add exposure down, not too much because otherwise it just looks like a greyed out car like that. So you have to be careful. So we'll just bring it down to a realistic level because it's a dark paint anyway. So we'll go about there. But obviously now we've got the shadows, because if I just take the shadows out, that's where it was, do you know what I mean? So I like to pull those shadows up to see all the little mini bits, but then also add, what have I done? But then also add a little bit of darken exposure just to bring it to a realistic level, but we can now see the nice little crispy bits of the car. That is the first one. If you don't do that, I think you should start doing it. You'll see a big difference in your cars because, yeah, all the details and all the little mini gaps like in the rims, it's quite nice to see and it makes them look really fresh. Moving on. Now this one actually might be the most important one. So this is gonna stop your photos just looking like a flat image. Have you ever taken a photo where it's like, it just doesn't look cool, like it doesn't look depthy, it just looks like a flat blank piece of paper? And that's because it's all the same color and there's no shadows, no shading. So if I just lifted the exposure up on this photo right here, that's just flat. That whole image is flat. Boring. So what I do is firstly grab the exposure. Obviously you've already edited the photo, but you grab the exposure and you just look at the car, ignore everything else. I want the car there. That's where I want the car. And then you move on to the background. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the car and not touch it, and we're going to add a shadow and a light source. So for me, it's naturally darker on the left side of this image. You see down here, it's a bit darker, and even on the car, because the light is over here bouncing from this. So we're just gonna accent that a little bit more. We're gonna grab a linear gradient, and we are going to drag it up from the bottom or the top. I'm gonna go from the bottom, because let's say the light source, like from the sun, is above, but, oh my God, it's affecting the car. So what are we gonna do? We're just going to minus the subject, and then the subject is now going to stay where we set it to originally. And now we can add that nice, the gradient shadow, not too much, that's stupid, don't be an idiot, but you're going to go about there. About there. So now we've got something different on the left compared to the right and compared to the car, because we're not affecting the car, the darkness is around it. And then we're going to do the same thing from the top. And the reason I like using linear gradients is because look, this top side is really harsh, but then it slowly fades in. Whereas if you just brushed it, it's all going to be that same strength. So I really do suggest using linear gradients. So from there, we're actually going to overexpose this side a little bit, not too much. And then we're going to come down to the dehaze. And this is, I don't really know what the actual definition of the word is, but for me, mist, smoke, haze, that's what I see it as. So we're going to lift that. What way is it? This way. So we're going to lift that a little bit to make it a little bit lighter there. We're also going to bring down the texture of that section to make it look like there's a dreamy sunlight beam coming into the photo. And then what I like to do is grab the oranges, because it's normally a sun. Like it's normally the sun, which is my light source in these photos. Obviously, if it was like a shop light, then you could accent it with a blue tint. But for this image, we're going to go with the orange tint from the sun on a nice soft evening. So we'll just accent that, not too crazy. We'll go about there. You always want to look in the corners because that's where it's going to be the strongest. And then we can even lift the exposure up a tiny bit more. And for a third linear gradient now, see we've got the shadow on the right, we've got the sun at the left. We're going to come from this bottom left corner. And so we're merging between the two of them now. Again, we're going to minus the subject. Get out of my face. And then all we're going to do here is we're going to bring down the blacks, the shadows, the highlights, and then tiny bit of exposure, tiny bit of contrast up, and then you're going to come to the clarity and you're going to lift that up as well, because that's going to make that floor really gritty and look really rough. But a floor that's a bit darker looks a lot better against a car instead of a light, boring, pasty orange floor. So now we've got 3 different adjustments one on the left, one on the top right, one on the floor, and one on the car. So they're all completely different exposures and different tints, different shadows, different highlights to separate them apart to make your photo look more 3D and cooler. Does that make sense? So the last one is really, really nitpicky, and I'd actually be surprised if you've heard of this before. Hopefully I'm the first person that's told you this, and I'm amazing, but I've never heard it before. I figured this one out myself, and I haven't actually met anyone that does it as well. So we're gonna leave this photo because it's not the right place to use it. The right place to use it is if you've got a nice detail shot of the back end or the front end of the car where there is a headlight or a rear tail light in the shot. So obviously we've got my lovely preset on from the creative category. There's 5 different categories of the preset pack. I know, crazy. So I'll quickly adjust. I'm not gonna do all the crazy stuff we just did. I'll just adjust this a little bit. We'll go about there, bosh, whatever. The main thing we're gonna do is brush the rear headlight, tail light. I always mix them up. And obviously that's really rough, so I've spilt over the edges a little bit, but I just want to show you. So the way to show you is just do it. So I'm going to come down to the clarity. That's all we're going to touch, clarity. And we're going to whack it all the way up, which is crazy to say because clarity really does mess up your photos. But for these areas of the car, it does something like a polarizer does. So look at this headlight right here, yeah? Look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. Off, on, off, on, not on, full, not there, full. Do you see what I mean? So it acts like a polarizer. Yes, it sharpens it and makes it a bit artificial, but when you've exported it, you're not going to notice that. Look at how much cooler that looks. Look, not on, not on. So it kind of acts like a polarizer where it brings those reflectors up, cuts through that glass slightly, a tiny bit more, and just makes that headlight really, really pop. So now my eye is drawn directly to that headlight, tail light. And it just looks a lot better. So yeah, it's a controversial one. I've never seen anyone do it. So let me know down below if you already knew that. If you didn't, then you're welcome. That is all 3. That is all 3 of the things that I do to my car photos. That are little mini secrets that you should start doing as well and make them pop a lot more. And everyone's gonna be like, how do you do that, bro? How do you do that? So yeah. That's that. Hopefully you enjoyed. Short and sweet video. I'm going to a new car meet that's opening soon, Caffeine and Machine, if you know. It's opening up near Bedford and Milton Keynes, so I'm going to go down there for the opening, get a nice video. I'm going to take the bike. I've got a bike now. Do you want to see the bike? If you stuck around to the end, you get a little treat. Let's go out in the garage and I'll show you my new bike. So if you follow me on Instagram, you've already seen this, but if you don't, I was doing my lessons, my direct access lessons. So in the UK, you have to be 24 before you can get like a big bike. So I turned 24 and I did my direct access to get all the way up to whatever bike I want to ride. And I went ahead and brought a Honda CBR 600F. It is an absolute beast. Look at it, 600F. I won't show you my number plate because, you know, we were going the speed limit, but big fat exhaust on it. Actually, you know, I'll give you a startup. You want a startup? I'll give you one. Yeah, so this is crazy. I am making a channel for this. I'm waiting for my GoPro mount to come for my helmet so I can actually mount the GoPro on it. I'm gonna make a separate channel just for this bike. So if you like bike content, stay tuned and you can go check that channel out. But I will sometimes show you when we ride places to take photos. I'll maybe take the bike for you and give you a little teaser, but I'll just let you hear it. All right, give you a little sound test. That's crazy, isn't it? that's like low revs as well. So yeah, plenty of bike content coming, so make sure you stick around and I'll let you know once I've got the channel up and running. I'll do a photo shoot with that as well. I'll actually take, when I've got the mount, I'll go out and we'll take some photos of the bike. Try and find a cool location to actually get some shots of it. But yeah, good times. Yeah, that's it really. Thanks for staying to the end if you did. Click subscribe if you want. Like the video if it helped you out. Presets, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys later.